A compelling case can be made that certain cultural and psychological factors in the upbringing of many American evangelical baby boomers created a mindset that can make apocalyptic thinking and strong leader loyalty more appealing. This does not apply to all individuals, but the pattern shows up often enough in sociology, psychology of religion, and political analysis to be worth examining. 1. Apocalyptic theology was central to their religious formation. Many evangelicals who grew up in the 1950s to 70s were heavily exposed to premillennial dispensationalism, a theology emphasizing the imminent end of the world, the rapture, and global catastrophe preceding Christ's return. Popular books, sermons, and films repeatedly reinforced this narrative. The message was often, the world will get worse and worse. Global chaos is part of God's plan. True believers will be vindicated when the end comes. For people raised in that framework, world instability is not purely negative. It can be interpreted as confirmation that prophecy is unfolding. Psychologically, this can create a strange paradox. Global crises may trigger fear, but it can also produce religious excitement or validation. In that environment, some believers don't consciously want the world to end, but they may emotionally interpret geopolitical turmoil as spiritually meaningful or even hopeful. 2. Cold War childhood reinforced end times thinking. Boomers grew up during the Cold War, when nuclear annihilation was a constant cultural backdrop. They experienced nuclear drills in school, apocalyptic news rhetoric, religious interpretations of the Soviet Union as evil forces and prophecy. This combination of existential threat and prophetic religion created a worldview where global destruction felt almost inevitable. In many evangelical communities, the Cold War was interpreted through biblical prophecy frameworks. So the psychological baseline became, the world is unstable, morally collapsing, and heading toward an inevitable climactic end. When that belief forms early in life, it can shape how later events are interpreted. 3. Highly authoritarian religious culture. Many evangelical environments of that era emphasize strong hierarchical authority: God, pastor, father, family, children. Questioning authority was discouraged. Obedience was equated with righteousness. Psychologists sometimes call this authoritarian personality formation. Children raised in systems with strict hierarchy often become comfortable with clear leaders, simple moral narratives, and obedience structures. This can later translate into politics or social movements, where strong leaders are trusted more than complex institutions. In other words, the mental model is truth comes from authority figures, not from decentralized debate. Parenting styles of the era reinforced obedience. Boomer childhood in the United States was often marked by strict discipline and less emotional openness compared with modern parenting norms. Common features included corporal punishment. Children should be seen and not heard. Fathers as unquestioned authority figures. In psychological terms, this can produce what some analysts call a paternal authority template. Later in life, people with this template may gravitate towards leaders who project certainty, strength, paternal protection, moral clarity. The dynamic sometimes resembles a father-figure relationship, which critics describe metaphorically as a daddy complex. School systems emphasize conformity. Mid-20th century American education was far more conformity-oriented than today. Typical traits included memorization over critical analysis, strong respect for authority figures, rigid social norms. This environment often rewarded compliance and group alignment, rather than questioning dominant narratives. When combined with religious authority structures, it reinforced a habit of following trusted leaders rather than challenging them. Identity built around moral certainty. Many evangelical communities frame reality in binary moral terms: saved versus unsaved, good versus evil, believers versus the world. This worldview can make complex social problems feel like spiritual battles, which in turn increases loyalty to leaders who claim to defend the good side. Once someone is framed as a protector of the faith or nation, criticism of that leader can be interpreted as an attack on the moral order itself. That dynamic can easily slide into leader idealization or idolatry. Apocalyptic narratives reward loyalty. End times theology often contains a powerful emotional structure. The world becomes corrupt. True believers are persecuted. A decisive final conflict occurs. God ultimately vindicates the faithful. Psychologically, this narrative can make believers feel like participants in a cosmic drama. In such a story, loyalty to the right side becomes extremely important. Leaders who frame events in those terms can gain intense devotion. The key insight: when you combine all these influences, Cold War existential fear, apocalyptic theology, authoritarian religious structures, strict parenting hierarchies, conformity-oriented schooling, moral binary thinking, you get a worldview where global crises feel inevitable, authority feels comforting, and loyalty to strong leaders feels morally necessary. From the outside, critics interpret this pattern as a follower mentality, susceptibility to leader worship, and sometimes a strange openness to apocalyptic outcomes, because they fit the prophetic narrative people were raised with. Important caveat: it is crucial to stress that many evangelical boomers do not fit this pattern at all. Large numbers are politically diverse, skeptical of authority, uninterested in apocalyptic politics. But sociologically, the combination of Cold War evangelical culture and mid-century authoritarian social structures does help explain why this mindset appears more frequently in that demographic.